Hello and welcome to Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul YouTube version. And I'm here today with Mr. 2020. You can find him at freeneville.com. Mr. 2020 is a Neville Goddard expert. He's a coach, and he was held hostage in this huge prison riot. And he had PTSD, he had all these problems, and he managed to solve them and cure himself of PTSD and many other things, and now he teaches other people about what he's learned about Neville Goddard, and he helps them, coaches them to reach their goals. In our last session, we were talking about how to break out of worry, pain, fear fast. So we may talk about pain and fear a little bit today, but we're going to just sort of see where it goes. How are you doing, Mr. 2020?
I'm excellent, Marie. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'm so happy to have you, and I have all these notes, so I never know where to start. But we were talking last time about fear versus caution, and you were talking about how consciousness is the only reality, and also how the imaginal and the physical are both still really important. So how about we jump in there?
Wow. Cool. Okay, so we're going for the main course right off the bat. That's awesome. So, when a lot of years ago, whenever I came across thoughts like consciousness was the only reality, that kind of thing, it was interesting because I noticed two things with that. One, it brought a lot of baggage along with it. And when I say baggage, I just mean like, holy crap, what if that was the case? And the other thing was, it brought along a lot of assertions. For example, if consciousness is the only reality, then I'm going to step out in front of a bus and see what happens. Well, it doesn't really work all that well. So, when you think like that, so when we say consciousness is the only reality, literally, let's talk about two worlds that we all live in 100% of the time, and that is we live in this physical world because we've got this really cool meat suit, and we also live in this imaginal world because we have this amazing capacity that we could call mind or imagination. Now, what's really interesting, if you think about it, your body is subject to both worlds. So if you could imagine something like biting into a lemon or a lovely lemon meringue pie, and your body's going to respond to that, and your body's also going to respond to gravity, which is part of where protoplasm lives. So when I say consciousness is the only reality, it sort of brings us down to that point of realizing, everything that you experience, everything that's experienced by humanity, it's experienced in consciousness. And if we start to flirt around in there a little bit, that's where it gets fun, because one of them tends to lead the other, and it just gets to be good fun.
Cool. I liked what you said in the last video about if Crazyville is in here, then focus out there, and if Crazyville's out here, then focus in here. And I think that, Crazyville, it seems like it's all over. So maybe you could just refresh our memories about that one.
Yeah, you betcha. It's really interesting because. Again, so consciousness is the only reality. We've got the inner world or in the outer world. We could classify it that way if we wanted to. And always remember, if your inner world's a little nuts or a little down or whatever, a few minutes ago we tossed on a Bee Gees tune just for the heck of it, and instantly, all the energy starts moving and grooving. So like if things on the inside start to get a little hectic, you don't go on the inside and try to control that. That would be insane. That'll lead to control issues, right? We don't need any more of those. Versus we can just shine the flashlight someplace else. So let's bring some Bee Gees into it just for a little bit, use up some of that energy, and then we can get productive. So there's always fun games that you can play with that, as long as you remember, consciousness is the only reality, and everything that you experience is either on the inside or the outside. Don't confuse the two, or else it gets a little weird. But if one of them's a little hectic or out of control, go to the other one. And the same thing, if the outside's a little nuts, if you're at a get-together or out with some friends or whatever, and things get a little hectic, just go inside for a little bit. And if you just go inside and maybe pay attention to your breathing, or imagine how you'd prefer the situation to be, that'll change your physiology. literally the way you move, the way you smell, the way you think, and again, that'll change the world around you.
Now, thank you, Tony. We talk about mindfulness these days, and there have been a lot of studies on mindfulness and how it's really effective. So when you're talking about going within or going without, we can, I mean, are you talking about just distracting with physical stuff or being mindful? What does it look like when you're in the physical,
Cool.
focusing on that?
I'm not all that big on distraction, even though we all can get into distraction. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So like distraction can feel good. It can give you a little tiny break. Distraction for me is sort of like, do you drive? Do you know anybody who drives, or do you drive like a manual stick shift? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where you've got a clutch and you go from first to second, second to third, right? For me, distraction is that neutral bit. So it's okay to go from first to neutral to second to neutral to third to neutral to fourth, but we don't want to distract ourselves a whole bunch. A lot of people just sort of put it in neutral and gas it up a whole bunch and nothing happens. So I'm not really talking about distraction, but it's more like, for example, if I'm in a situation and I just want to change things a little bit on the outside, I realize that it's the inside that tends to lead the outside. So literally, that's when I'd go inside and just imagine things as how would I choose to be in this situation? For example, one day a couple years ago, I got pulled over by the police. That just happens. And so cop walks up to the window, and again, I'm an ex-cop. You think I wouldn't get nervous? Well, blood pressure spikes, all that stuff. And he says, driver's license, registration. Well, when you got a name like Mr. 2020, it gets interesting, right? So I start handing over my paperwork, and I realize I'm a little shaky, a little whatever. And as I handed it to him, I just closed my eyes for a second and just imagined, what's it like being a cop? What's it like being okay with cops? What's it like knowing everything is fine? And instantly, my physiology started to shift. And so when the cop goes, is this for real? And it's like, yeah, you run a 1027 on it, 1028 on the plate, or whatever it is. Just talking cop language. He gets it, because again, the behavior follows the imaginal act.
I'm making notes. That's why I'm looking down here.
Yeah, that's cool. The difference, by the way, would be, so I imagined who I'd like to be in that situation when I'm dealing with the police officer for a few moments. Compared to if I just wanted to distract myself, I'd close my eyes while talking to the cop and maybe imagine a smooth lake. At which point, after probably a few minutes of me going to a smooth lake, he's probably going to arrest me because I'm probably now, just stoned in the car because I'm imagining the smooth lake, right? So imagining who I choose to be changes my behavior. Imagining the still pond might be useful for a few seconds, but we don't want to go through life doing that generally.
Awesome. That was really helpful. Thank you for the example. So
cool.
It's so weird being on camera because I feel like it looks like I'm not listening if I'm looking down at my notes.
Nice.
Now that's one technique. The who would I like to be like to be a cop? What would be like to be comfortable around cops? Yeah. And you have so many helpful tips and tricks, and like the one I've been doing, the eye movements, and there's with so many little things. Where do you start, and how do you pick what you're going to use occasionally and practice daily?
Wow. Me specifically?
Sure, you, and then maybe how do you do it, and how might you recommend we do it?
Got it. Okay. So generally, I tell you what. Yeah. So I start my day. I've already determined pretty much who I want to be in the world at most times, and who I choose to be in the world as a teacher, author, loving husband. So I start the day pretty much with that as my identity. I'm a teacher, an author, coach, loving husband, that kind of deal. So that determines the questions I'm going to ask every day. So one of my first questions every morning is, can I sneak out of bed and make her breakfast? Just for something to do. Right, so in some days I can pull it off, some days I can't. But just having that as one of the first questions, because questions set direction in the mind. So if your identity determines the questions you're going to ask. The questions that you ask are going to set the direction of your thinking, which is going to also set the direction of your behavior. So one of the first questions I ask is, can I sneak out and make her breakfast and coffee in bed? And again, some days I can pull it off, some days I can't. Either way, it's good fun. As the day starts up, again, so I move from just loving husband into coach, internet guy, all that good stuff. So then I start asking questions that have to deal with that. And generally, my number one question for productivity is, what is the most important boy, you think I'd know this question. I got the essence, but I forget the words. But the essence of the question basically is, what's the most vital thing that I have to do today for my business? What's the number one activity that produces, the impact in people's lives, the money in the business growth, yada yada yada. So I'm always looking for what's the primary key activity to do first today, and what other things do I need to accomplish today when it comes to business, productivity, so on and so forth. So that's where I'd suggest people begin. Notice who you've adopted as your identity, and you can have multiple identities. That's the cool thing. Loving husband, author, coach, trainer, good neighbor. There's a nice one to have. So if you got a couple really good identities that you can put on, like hats, literally those are going to determine your questions, which will again determine your destiny. So that's where I would begin.
Okay, I'm making notes about that. Okay, so when you say notice who you've adopted as your identity first thing in the morning, so what does that look and sound and feel like? So you're lying in bed, and then what's the first thing you generally, if you feel like sharing it, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you wake up in the morning?
Wow. And that's it right there.
Or the first thing that you intentionally put in your mind, if that's better.
Yeah. Well, that's actually it. In law enforcement, there was a term that we use called res geste. It's Latin for spontaneous utterance. And one of the things that drives me nuts is affirmations. I've used them. I think they work for a small minority of the people from over like 25 years of coaching experience. I don't think they work for most people all that effectively unless you tweak some things. And then still, they're just a lot of work for a little bit of a return. But instead of affirmations, honest to God, having a res geste moment, or searching for those, or letting them show up. Literally, I wake up in the morning. I live in a little piece of heaven. We live in a mud brick home. It basically looks like about a 17th century French home here. And I wake up in the morning, and I see the heavy walls with the lovely texture, the wooden roof. If it's raining, I can hear the rain on the roof. I can hear the birds outside. And I wake up next to this lovely lady. And so the first thought really is, it's res geste, it's spontaneous, it's wow, whoa, cool, just almost always a single syllable too. And again from there, that's just what kicks off all the other stuff, if that makes sense.
Okay. So then what if, that sounds like a great way to wake up in the morning, and you've done a lot of work on yourself, so you're probably once you're in a positive momentum, it's a lot easier to keep that up. But what if you're one of these people who wakes up feeling like crap every morning?
Yeah. There are times in my life where I've had recurrent health issues. I'm 48. I got beat up pretty good in a riot. I was an allergy kid, born 3 months early, 2 pounds 4 ounces, all that good stuff. Managed to break a whole bunch of things doing karate and jumping off of roofs as kids. And so I've got my fair share of aches and pains and things that even linger somewhat. So whether it's physical or psychological or situational, we all have times where we go through stuff like that. And I think the number one thing is to always remember the bad stuff ends. It always does. The bad stuff ends. By the way, I put an expiration date on things, right? So when you go and you get the milk out of the fridge, there's an expiration date on it, right? Anything that I don't like, I put expiration dates on. So literally, and this is a really lovely little technique as well. If I'm feeling crappy or upset or angry, or sometimes I get some interesting emails, right? And every now and then somebody fires an email at me, and I fire something right back. And I'm still human. Yeah, and the thing is, when an upset shows up, uh, I always put an expiration date on it. In other words, I'm gonna be outright furious about this for the next 90 seconds. And so literally, if you looked at my web browser, I've got all sorts of timers: 4-minute timer, 90-second timer. Google has all these timers. Almost nobody knows about these. But if you just type in, like Chrome, if you type in 4-minute timer on your browser bar, you'll get a 4-minute timer from Google. So I've got all these things because every now and then, if I decide to have an upset, or I just have somebody ask me a stupid question, or that shows up, I go, okay, I'm going to be upset about this for 30 seconds. And I'm really going to feel the upset because I don't want to resist it. If you resist it, it's going to get stuffed. If you try to manage it, that turns you into a manager. I don't want to be a stuffer, and I don't want to be a manager. What I choose to be is a creator in my life. And so when something like that shows up, I choose how long do I feel it, how long do I let it impact my life, and again, I set the timer, and when the timer goes off, that's it.
Interesting. I like that idea because I often find that I have sometimes a tendency to ruminate in the past, or it's something I'm working on. And I think part of that is the pushing it away, and then it keeps coming back, and then it's almost like when you're meditating, you're focusing on your breath, and sometimes you get carried away with a thought. It's
Yes.
almost like that kind of thing. It's not conscious. Like what you're doing is really a conscious, focused, I'm feeling this now.
Yes.
Full on.
Yes. I notice with people, being the Neville Goddard guy, I never planned on being the Neville Goddard guy. I fortunately or unfortunately modeled him really heavily back in, I think, 2009, and fell in love with his mindset, and everything sort of worked from there, I guess. But the number one thing I notice is this: people aren't present. They aren't present to the physical world, and they're not present to what they're imagining, their imaginal world. So here we are. Again, I'll toss out a really interesting comment. Consciousness is the only reality. However, we don't put much of our attention on either subset, the inner world, what we imagine, or the outer world, what we sense with the senses. And it's fascinating to me because one of the things that I bump into time and time again in coaching is, if I had $1 million, I'd be happier. And when I talk to them about that, it pretty much comes down to, I'd be happier because I could be more present. I wouldn't have worries. Well, I know millionaires who still worry and they're not present. So $1 million won't make you more present, and it won't make you more happy. But if you choose to be more present right now with what you're imagining, if you choose to be present more right now with what's going on in your physical world, I promise you they're both going to get richer. And I think that's a big part of what this is all about.
Cool. Interesting. Now it's given me something to think about, and I love that. That's the thing with the broadcast. I like being able to write down these questions that come up, but I feel like I have to right away ask you another question, so I don't have time to really ponder what you've said. It's good to listen again, though, because then you have time to sort of process it. Did you want to say something?
No. I was going to say, well, yeah, why not? Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the recorded show and doing stuff like this, because if it was just you and I having a conversation, that would impact our lives and ripple out into the world. However, recording it, even if it was just for you and for me, would again remind us, and I could tell Victoria, oh yeah, you know what, Marie and I, we talked about something really cool today. I just, or if we play the show, which we do, right? We play your recordings here, and we'll end up pausing them and having our own conversations based on what's happening right there. And so it's the same thing. How many other people are blessed by this just because you and I take the time? It's my middle of the afternoon, it's your late evening, I think, and just we take whatever, 30 minutes, an hour, and just have a chat, and again, listen to it, pause it, listen to it with a friend. Better yet, I'd love to hear from people who are listening to these with a friend, not just hiding under their pillow and listening to it in the dark and wondering what their friends would think. No, find out what your friends will think. That way, you don't have to worry about what your friends would think, right? So share it with a friend. Grab a friend, listen to the show, carry on a conversation. So many times you can pause this show and carry on a conversation and get back to it. That's cool. That'll change lives.
Cool. Well, if people are listening and not watching on YouTube, they can find you and connect with you at freeneville.com, or people can visit youtube.com/spiritual show, and please comment and share your thoughts, because we love to know what you're thinking and how it is for you. And Mr. 2020 always responds and reads them, don't you?
Yeah, you know what? For the rare times that I don't respond to things, it's just because I miss them, or that it gets caught in a spam filter or something. But gosh, yeah, we reply to everyone, even the cranky ones. So why not? And here's a good thing. I can tell you this. I'm not the most brainiac guy in the world, or the wisest, or the richest, but I love when people reach out. And every person that I've managed to reach out to and connect with tells me the same thing. They love having honest conversations and connections with people. So if there's people out there that you love, respect, enjoy listening to or reading, drop them a note, send them a postcard, drop them an email. They may or may not respond, but I guarantee if they get it, they're going to be blessed by it. So always reach out, whether it's to me or somebody else, or Marie. Reach out to Marie. She's pretty cool. So there we go.
Thanks, Twinny. Well, you had said, now you mentioned that you even respond to the cranky ones. Yeah. What do you say to the cranky ones? Because that's tough.
It's interesting to me because sometimes it almost is going to sound harsh. It's like almost like being a parent sometimes. Because there's sometimes where people write and they'll say, hey, where can I find out more about this? Or what are your thoughts about this? Or what would Neville say? And, those are easy. And other people write, and it's like, I disagree with you. You're absolutely wrong. And it's like, cool, man. Thanks for letting me know. And then, if they write back, sometimes they write back and I say, look, the way you're doing this is all wrong. I said, great. Tell me about your results. What are you getting? Because if you're successful, I'd like to model you. And 9 times out of 10, I don't get successful people that are arguing with me. I get people that just want to argue, and then they disappear. So, there's the part of it that really, again, I've got to notice the state I'm coming from. Is it the teacher, business guy, loving husband, yada, 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 or something else, right? So, and again, that personal honesty really, it blesses you. Yeah, and again, it comes down to that whole attention thing. What are you letting into your attention? How much awareness are you putting on your inner and your outer? How honest are you being about yourself? And the thing is, you can always be honest with yourself about where you're coming from, if you're not going to beat yourself up, and that's a biggie. So don't ever beat yourself up. If you notice you've taken a side trip, cool. You stop, regroup, and adjust course. But I think that's the big thing right there.
Beating myself up is like my #1 skill.
Wow, what a hobby.
I know, right? That's actually, I wrote this, I was on my way out for a walk before the show, and it came to mind. I had to make a note on my cell phone so that I'd remember to write it down. And the other day I had brought up something about being triggered with argumentative people, and I posted it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a little bit of journaling in the last couple of days because I had some stuff come up, and I'm was thinking about it today, and I'm wondering if maybe, because I like to post on Facebook because it helps me sort of sort through what I'm thinking, and it's interesting. I do enjoy engaging in conversation, and on the other hand, when you post on an open forum like that, anyone can post. They might give unsolicited advice. There may be judgments. A lot of it is perceived judgment, right? If someone says something like, you should do this, I automatically, I just feel it inside me, and I have to grit my teeth and not say something rude in response. But I'm just wondering what you think between like journaling on your own privately, or maybe having a conversation with a trusted friend versus Facebook open discussion?
Wow. So it was somewhere around 2001 and 2002. I decided to do an experiment, and the experiment was basically my number one focus in this lifetime is waking up. Whether you want to call it enlightened, awakened, self-realization, I don't care about any of those terms. What I get is that humanity, for the most part, is asleep, and we're waking up. So one of the goals this lifetime is, the primary goal this lifetime is to wake up. And from what I can tell, what that means is to really be a lot more aware, which naturally leads to being a lot more loving. Now, with all of that said, I decided way back in 2001, 2002 to produce a ton of products and a ton of websites, a ton of articles, and a ton of writing designed to do a couple things. One, to help me make a living. Two, to help me help people. And actually, three, to document the whole process. Yeah, that way, in the event, if I actually did well with it, we could look back at all the products and all the ad copy and all the articles and all the emails and all this stuff and go, oh, this is how it progressed. On the other hand, if I managed to take a wrong turn and go to the insane asylum, someone could look back at all the years and go, oh, look at that, he was doing really great until 2007. Bad year. Or whatever, So just making that part up. But it really, I was watching a movie of myself years ago, and I realized while watching this movie how transparent I am. I thought that nobody could read my emotions, and I thought nobody could tell what I was thinking, right? And I watched this movie of myself. I was at a wedding, and I look and I see all the eye glances and all the movements, and I went, oh my God, I'm so transparent. Wow. And that's what led to a lot of this, because it's like, if just noticing, I can't hide nothing. There's no point in me trying. How much energy? I looked at that video and realized I was putting so much energy in, like, trying to be cool and all that stuff, and at the same time, like, every little micro gesture, I could just see it there, and it's like, I ain't hiding nothing from nobody, So it's like, I might as well save the energy, use it for something else. So, indirectly going back to your question, I don't think we can hide anything. And I'm really into exposing as much as possible. And again, that comes down to even with my current projects. I share so much of me in my current projects for two reasons. One, because I hope it helps people, and two, I just want to document the whole process. It's not what I think about it. It's, this is where I'm at today. Even like these shows. Heck, this is part of the archive. We can go back from 2002 to now, and you'll see in 2002 I had a heck of a goatee, and I was a lot more serious about myself and all that crap, which was funny as heck. But we really get at some point we all wake up and notice you can't hide. There's nothing to hide. There's no reason to hide it. Free up a lot of energy and just go, okay, cool. This is how I am. This is who I am. This is where I'm stuck. This is what I got going on, and just letting it fly. It makes it just so much easier.
So what do you think of, because you were part of the thread that I had commented about, I just, basically it was, what is it about me, or why am I so triggered by people who are argumentative? I get sucked in, so obviously I don't want to argue, but then I end up in this sort of argument, and then I eventually back out because it's just like, wow, why am I even doing this? And so I was curious, like, why do I even engage when I see the little warning signs or the trigger words and things like that? And through the process of this, there were some helpful comments. Well, everyone's comments were helpful, but some were more triggering for me, and I felt judged. And so I sort of, on the one hand, like, everything has value, and there's different things that you can get out of different modalities and whatever technique you want to use, whether it's journaling or Facebook. But I just kind of wonder, I have all these questions going around, like, is it more productive? I mean, I'm almost when I post, I do it because I enjoy opening the conversation. I'm curious to have a dialogue, but then I often end up, as you know, deleting these threads because I start to feel like I'm being judged and attacked and picked apart. And
Yep.
then if I say I'm being judged, the attitude seems to be, well, you're inviting judgment, you're asking for it because you're being public. So what are your thoughts about that?
Judge not lest you be judged is a scriptural thing, and I don't get that it's if I judge Marie, then God will judge me. No, 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 no. Judgment is a habit, and so when we drop judging, uh, and here's a real tricky one, right? We can judge judging. We can make judging bad, and say, I'm not going to judge anymore. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge me because judging is bad. You get that just sealed it in, right? Versus if we just go, okay, judgment, I can do the option, I cannot do the option. He who has the most options wins, right? We take Visa, MasterCard, American Express, cash, peanuts. You got an old bicycle? I might take that too, right? So the more ways you can get paid, I had an Army Navy store years ago, and I discovered the more ways I can get paid, the more stuff moves in and out. So sometimes I'd buy, sometimes I'd sell, sometimes I'd swap or trade. Visa, MasterCard, cash, check by some people I trust, except for one fellow, Benny, who I had to hunt down, but that's another story. Now, so the more ways you get paid, the better. And it's the same with your inner strategies. If you wanna judge or be judged, go full tilt boogie with it. Again, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to judge everything, everyone. I'm going to judge being judgmental. Again, set a timer. Google's got the timers. So, just go hog wild with it for something to do. Okay, then you can get it out of your system in case you need to or want to. But the second thing is, I noticed while you were talking about this, you speed it up. So you were talking, you had a pretty much what's probably your baseline cadence. And whenever things got a little bit judgmental, you sped up a little bit, and your breathing shifted, right? So I'd suggest playing with speeding up and having your breathing shift up into there at will. So where is it that you'd normally just want to talk slow? Hey, give me 200 grams of chipped ham and 2 chicken thighs and some Swiss cheese. That'd be good. And, so instead of doing that, you go, give me 200 grams of chicken thighs and some Swiss cheese and some. Try varying your speed and your breathing a little bit when it doesn't matter, at will, so you don't have to have anything on the outside trigger it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think happens when you practice that?
You make it less conditioned. We talk about unconditional love and stuff like that in the spiritual circles. And I look at things as conditioned. So much of life we've got set up almost. When I was into computer programming, I learned flow charting. So a flow chart could have an if-then loop. So if this, then that. If not, then this. And you could structure these things out with different things. And a different condition would cause a different routine to run in the program. And we aren't computers, but we really try to be. And so one of the things that we can do is we can remove these if-then loops by literally just having some fun with this stuff. So there may be a part of you, okay, that has this. Candace Pert talked about our addictions to our emotions, quite literally, the neuropeptides associated with emotions. And so there could be an addicted part of Marie's body or beingness that just likes a little bit once in a while, right? And so you could find the by doing this, or you could find the by doing that. But if you decide it's time for the and just go for the whatever that is, you're going to be able to hit it directly, which is cool. So anytime we make something like that unconditional, speeding up, slowing down, talking louder or quieter, some people only talk quiet when you beat on them. Literally. Which is crazy because when I was a cop, I noticed like there were just loudmouths around town. There'd be loudmouth, and would have to, as cops show up and just say, "Settle down." They'd go, "Yes, sir." And then the wife would tell me a day or two later, "I love when you guys yell at him because he settles down and he's nice and quiet and cuddly for a day or two." But it's a shame the cops got to show up and yell at the guy to make him nice and quiet and cuddly for a day or two. He doesn't get that that's an option. He doesn't need the cop to make him do it. So anytime we remove the need for an outside stimulus, we actually become a lot freer.
That actually reminds me of these commercials in the 80s for some kind of stop smoking device where it would tell you, so you'd program in when you would normally have a cigarette, and what it would do, it would start to tell you when to smoke at different times to change the pattern. It's almost the same kind of idea.
Yeah, you betcha. You know, I had a guy who wanted to stop smoking a couple years ago, and I basically just had him double his smoking for 3 days. So we determined like how many cigarettes he smokes a day, and he figured it out. And I said, okay, cool, we're just going to double it up for 3 days. And after 3 days, he was just toast. You know, he just couldn't handle it anymore. And he walked away from smoking for like 6 months. And when he picked it back up, he went to natural tobacco and just like 1 or 2 smokes a day, just because he enjoyed the experience of it. So it went from like an unconscious addiction, basically every 30 minutes I'm lighting up a cigarette. Every 15 minutes my iPhone says, light up, Steve. And then after that for a couple of days, it was conscious. And so he could just go, yeah, I'm going to have 1 or 2 cigarettes a day. I'll get the good stuff because I'm spending so little on it now.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, where do we go? I had all of these questions for you.
Wow.
And I had a question in mind, and then we sort of diverted away. Let me see. You were talking about actually the addiction to things, and I noticed that I have a friend who I notice we're just not good to be together. I mean, we get along for the most part, but I just feel like us spending a lot of time together isn't going to be productive anymore, based on some things that have happened. And I'm noticing like I've made this decision that this is what's healthy for me, and I'm in my wise mind and all of that. And I even actually, after the last time we had a big drama, I made a decision that I wasn't going to make any final decisions on anything for 3 days after a big upset, because what would happen is I'd say, I never want to talk to you again, and I would mean it in the moment, and then I'd feel all this regret and all that. But what I'm noticing, I'm sort of all over the place with this, what I'm noticing is that I can make a decision in the moment, but then there's almost an addiction. It's a habit of seeing this person, and of course there's a lot of good things about this person, and so I'm trying to balance like keeping myself safe and knowing what's right for me with going back to this habit. And I don't know what the question I'm asking. What advice do you have?
Got it. I tell you what I noticed while listening and watching. It appears as if you've got 2 decision-making speeds. One was very fast, and the other one was relatively slow. And they both have different ways which... So a decision is a fake noun, right? A decision is a virtual noun. In other words, if you said, hey, 20, give me your coffee cup, I could do that, right? Because you say, hey, let me have your coffee cup. Or versus if you say, well, give me your decision. Right? A decision is a virtual noun. There's not really a physical thing there. So when we have virtual nouns and there's not an actual physical thing there, what we want to do is we want to take that virtual noun and make it into a real verb. So the real verb is deciding. So there's 2 decidings, or 2 ways of deciding, we could say. We're going to really hack English here for a few seconds. I observed 2 ways of deciding as you went through and you told your story. One of the ways of deciding was much slower and had a different process than the other way of deciding. So you've got 2 ways of deciding. One you called in the moment, and the other one and was a little bit slower and measured out. Got it?
Yes.
I need you to have at least 92 ways of deciding.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So, because if you have 92 ways of deciding, faster, slower, more visual, more auditory, more kinesthetic, more asking other people versus going on anything on the inside, there's so many things we could vary with deciding strategies, right? So if you had 92, and I don't mean you got to have 92, but what if you just had 7? Right? So if you have 2 deciding strategies and one of them's working for you and one's not, you're going to be tempted to only use the one that is that one. Got it? But if you've got 7 deciding strategies, because there are times where you need that quick one. You grab the kid from off the highway. A little kid walks out in front of a highway. You need that fast one. Yeah, your slow one ain't going to save the kiddo's life. So, and you also need the fast one for non-crisis things. So if you have 7 different decision strategies, some based on inside, some outside, some more visual, some more auditory, some more kinesthetic, so on and so forth, some just almost random seeming, you'll discover a lot more variety gets to show up in you, which will be a lot of fun for you. Yeah, it's almost like if you have 2 decision strategies, there's a lot of pressure. If you've got 7, there's a lot of flexibility.
Well, what do you think about, because I feel like this, I'm noticing that it's helping me, this decision, the decision that I made to limit, like I'm not going to quit a job, break up with someone, something major, give notice that I'm going to move out of my house if I'm in upset mode. Like
Correct.
I've told myself that, and because there's times when I was in a class on the weekend and I wanted to walk out, and I was like, no, I'm not going to make a decision. I'm just going to stay and sit here. So I feel like that's productive for me because it's been a habit in the past to react emotionally, and then I may, even if it was a good decision, because I based it purely on heated emotion, I question whether it was the right one.
You betcha. So how much energy do you, when you're in upset versus non-upset, which one has more energy for you?
Upset, I would say.
Yeah, guarantee it, right? So you get to play with having high energy in a non-upset state. If you play with having high energy in a non-upset state and make decisions from there, you're going to have a really fun time doing it. So, because right now it's basically there's low energy, I'll make a decision. There's high energy, I don't want to make a decision. So we want to play with having high energy but not being upset and exploring decision making there for you.
So what might that look like? Like dancing, skipping? What do you recommend?
It actually could, right? So it actually could end up with you being on the dance floor listening to the Bee Gees, right? Just doing all that stuff, and just going, it's Chinese for dinner, versus making the decision from a lower energy state, or it could be what the new business is going to be coming from that dancing high energy state. You get to find out. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, here we go. So this is related to what I was talking about with the person that I'm parting with. This is about revision. Yeah. So I was looking through my journal, and I hadn't been reading my notes about revision and stuff for a bit, but I went back to it, and I really enjoy revising because I feel like you get to practice on so many levels. Like you're able to rewire your brain, you're able to learn what might have worked better. Like it's just such an amazing exercise. But what if something slightly negative happened or something upsetting, but it was because it was time to move on? Like there was this catalyst, like you talked about one time when your computer broke down, and then you later decided, well, I think this is this happened so that I would move on and upgrade when I needed to. So how is that kind of situation where it feels negative on the surface, how's that different than something that you would want to revise?
I don't know. Uh, cool. Would you mean like with this example that we were exploring right before, something like that?
With the friend or the computer?
Your friend?
Yeah, so the friend, I got upset. It was just I had a feel it was someone that I was sort of dating, and so it was like gets kind of complicated because we were friends and we dated and we are trying to stay friends and blah, 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 whatever.
Yep, yep.
So there was a trigger that happened with a little bit of I was feeling threatened by another woman, and I fully acknowledged, like, this is my issue. You're a free agent. You can do what you want, and I'm feeling like I need some reassurance.
Got it.
And that really triggered him, and he got really angry and started just kind of verbally like attacking and blaming just because I had a feeling. And so that was what made me decide, okay, that's the end. But I mean, if I was trying to change it, I might revise to think, okay, well, I either didn't express my feeling, or he didn't react in such an angry way, or some other thing. But I think that because this has been a pattern of him reacting very strongly over the time that I've known him, so I've decided that this is actually, even though it hurts, it's actually a good thing because it's shown me it's time to move on.
Yep, cool, got it. So I'm thankful for this thing called memory, because I know how to get from my home to Montmorency Shopping Village, do shopping, yell at my buddy Adrian. Oh, Adrian, he's got the veggie market up there, and I can go see Anne, the organic lady, and so on. I can have a lovely time because I know where they all are, thanks to this thing called memory. And I've gone there before. I got my routine. I hit Adrian. I go to Joe's. I hit, I hit all my shops, right? See all my people, bring home my bags of goodies. With all that in mind, you want to stick with I'm assuming you want to stick with your decision, right? So you've moved on, you're taking another path in life. But what you don't want to have happen is the same triggers to show up again. Yeah. Next time you're in a relationship, something shows up, and all of a sudden, right? Things just go haywire, and daggone it, I don't like this, So with revision, and people can find this on freeneville.com if they search for Neville Goddard's Toolbox. With revision, what we want to do is create false memories, because when you're in a similar situation in the future and you've got these false memories that don't have the sting in them for you, that they're going to influence your future behavior or your behavior at that time. So that way, what you want to have show up in your future relationships is communication, is honesty, is openness whenever you have something to show up, right?
Yes.
So what we want to do is also build in a bunch of false memories about this incident. In other words, revise it so that you were honest, you shared what you got, and he was okay with it. You shared what you got, he was okay with it, and the relationship ended. You shared what you got, he wasn't okay with it, you shared some more, you both got okay with it, you moved on. But the key is with enough of the false memories in there, we're not denying what happened physically. My elbows still hurt from the riot in 1989. So I don't deny that there was a riot. But you want to change how that's going to ripple into your future, because what happened when I had post-traumatic stress disorder, I would see a black man dressed in pretty much a monochromatic outfit, and my blood pressure would spike because that was an immediate threat, because that's what I saw in the prison. A black guy, monochromatic outfit, threat time. So I had to basically take control of my mind with that and create experiences with black people wearing monochromatic outfits that were friendly and loving towards me. Make enough of those up as well, and so next time I see a black man in a monochromatic outfit, I get to evaluate him and not react out of a memory. So when you create a couple new memories around this incident, when you go back and revise it, that doesn't put you back in with him, but it does free you from having any type of trauma from that incident impact your future relationships, which is cool.
Oh, I really like that.
Cool.
How,
Thanks for asking.
yeah,
Good.
no, thank you. And I always, it's interesting when we're talking, I notice like sometimes you'll be like, yeah, I got it, I got it. And I always wonder after the fact if I'm saying too much because and I know you comment when my speech speeds up and I'm like, I feel like I have to get it out. And
Yes.
sometimes I wonder, am I saying too much? And you're like sitting there going, okay, get to the point.
No, never. The cool thing is, I don't like answering questions. Okay? And this might sound shocking to some people, especially you, because you're interviewing me, right? I
Yeah.
do not like answering questions. What I love doing is answering the questioner. Because if I'm answering a question, it's about the data. When was Neville born? Fudge, I don't know, 1902. When did he die? 1972. Was I right? I don't know. I'd have to go look it up. Who cares, right? But when I'm answering the questioner, you and I get to connect, and literally a lot of love moves around, of healing happens. So it's never about the data for me. When people ask a question, I never answer the question. I'm answering the questioner. I'm noticing, what are they really asking? What's coming up there? So if it takes you 10 seconds or 10 minutes to do that, perfect. It's exactly what's needed, because hypothetical questions suck. But real questions, that's where real people get to connect up, and the real listeners and watchers get to be blessed as well. So fantastic. And again, just sharing that, seriously, you just sharing that, I don't know if I ramble too much or talk too much or not enough, or if I should get to the point for you. That's a gift to the listener, because every human being on the planet, if they're honest, will notice they've got a bit of that in there. And if you're okay with mentioning it, I'm okay with mentioning it, and they get to go, you know what, I'm okay with being human. I'm okay with maybe figuring it out while I'm on the fly, or I'm okay with speeding up or slowing down. I'm okay with just being me. What a lovely gift to give to the listeners today.
Awesome. Aw, 20, I love you. You're just so
I
helpful.
love. Yeah, it's cool. We hooked up for one show at 4 in the morning here. I don't know what time it was for you. I forget. I think it was 4 in the morning. Anyway, whenever it was, it was. But it's fabulous. I treasure our friendship, and I treasure who you are. And I mean it when I say on Facebook, you come out and you post stuff, and you just put it out there. And I'm telling you what, I respect that wholeheartedly, because so many people are just doing hypothetical things, or my friend Bob things, or like, no, just toss you out there. The world is hungry for real human contact, and you keep offering real human contact, and people are starving for it. So good on you.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because that brings me back to that whole question about posting on Facebook, and
Yeah.
because I do, I mean, I can ask hypothetical questions, but it is so much more interesting. And really, I mean, if you're asking a hypothetical question, you're probably asking it because you have a real situation
Yeah,
that you
you
want an
bet.
answer for, right?
You
So
betcha.
why not just get to the point and ask that?
Well,
But
in common law, I believe it was in British common law, a jury of your peers actually meant people who knew you. So when in the United States, when I was a police officer, a jury of your peers had to be people that didn't know the defendant. But common law, from what I understand, is a jury of your peers meant people that knew you, that knew the neighborhood, that knew all about it. Because when people know you and they know the neighborhood, and they potentially even know the victim of the crime or whatever, or the perpetrator of the crime or whatever, they factor all that in, because that's the big picture. It's not hypothetically somebody attacks somebody. It's not about the facts. It's about the objective facts and the subjective reality being, yeah, this is our neighborhood. We know Crazy Jimmy's out there at 4 in the morning. We got a guy here, Crazy Jimmy. He takes a walk at 4 every morning, and he cusses and screams the whole time. But he's baseline. Yeah, I know. Yep, it's 4 in the morning. Jimmy's taking his walk. And if somebody, and if anything ever happened to Jimmy, or if somebody said, "Oh, Jimmy was out there mugging people and stuff," no, he's not. Jimmy's just nuts. He takes a walk at 4 in the morning and he yells. Everyone's used to him. Nobody says anything. That's just Crazy Jimmy. We all know that. So, like, anytime you share you, or anytime you acknowledge you, or you invite someone else to acknowledge you, or uh, just share what's real, the whole world is blessed. So, and like I said, you've tossed up some goodies. I sit here and I just go, whoa, nice, good on you. So, my forehead smack on the floor, bow to you.
Thank you. Well, I have lots more questions, and I want to be mindful of your time, though. Or is it okay if we go a little bit over?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So with that, though, because I put myself out there, I ask these questions, whether we're having a conversation at a party or it's a post on Facebook. I do put my real self out there,
Yes,
and that's vulnerable.
you bet.
And a lot of the time, like I was saying before, I feel judged. It can hurt. And so I know that you're very real and authentic as well, but you
Yes.
don't seem to be as bothered by this stuff. So how did you let go of that feeling of like not? I just perceive you as someone who doesn't care what people think.
Very little. Uh, very little. The vulnerable, vulner means of the heart. So it has nothing to do with weakness. But vulnerable is feeling, and it's of the heart. In Chinese medicine, the heart and lungs are the seat of power. And when you start to just look at these old traditions and things that have been written by wise people and mystics and medicine men over the decades and centuries, essentially, uh, we live in a culture where the number one killer in men and women both, I believe, right now is heart. Heart attack, heart disease, congestive heart failure, strokes. Uh, I believe that. I believe it's above cancer currently. Uh, and the reason I say that is people have stifled their heart energy. They're protecting it for dear freaking life. I don't ever want to say anything that would make me appear to be weak. I don't want to go for my passions because what if I fail? My grandfather's generation, they could work 40 years in the mill and retire and get a watch. Current statistics, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor, say something like we're going to change careers every 2.5 years. Think about that. You go to college for 4 and you're going to change jobs every 2.5 years. Weird, right? We live in weird times. So why not, with this thing called the internet, and why not with this current understanding that a lot of people are waking up to, share the real you. Do something that you love with to make money, to make an impact in the world. Expose who you are. Expose who you want to be. People are so terrified of exposing who they want to be in the world. Wow, I remember when I was 17 years old, people say, what do you want to do, Stretch? I was really flexible back then. So I'd say, Stretch, what do you want to do? And I says, I want to teach. And I'm like, you can't teach in Scottsdale. I says, I'm going to try, and I did. I couldn't. there was not enough people. I tried to teach in southwestern Pennsylvania for years, and I could barely make a living. Then I discovered this thing called the internet and found out I could sell what I do online and make money. I thought, wow, that's cool. So I started out selling martial arts and hypnosis, NLP-related stuff through eBay. Started setting up websites, got into coaching, training, and all that stuff, bringing people in from around the world. Now I do it here. And my whole life changed because I decided 2 things. 1, to do what I love, but 2, to share my goofiness about it. And to share my uniqueness about it, because people are starving for that. They're starving, again, for the real person. They're starving for the human behind the thing, not just the enlightened master who never takes a poop. We want real people, and so that's it. The whole thing of being vulnerable. Just remember, vulner is of the heart. And the number one killer in our society is protecting the heart, locking it away, never listening to the darn thing. Listen to it, love it, pursue what you love, let your uniqueness show up, and I promise you it will heal all sorts of things. I had an echocardiogram done about 1.5 years ago when I was working through my immigration here in Australia. My blood pressure was high. They sent me to the doctor. Well, I had to go to the doctors for immigration. So they wanted to make sure that I was not going to die in a year or two after we went through all this paperwork. And I went, and my blood pressure was high. I mean, it was really high. And I told the doctor, I says, look, I eat a little soy sauce, and I don't like doctors and institutions, right? I'm here talking to a doctor. I'm in an institution, and I eat soy sauce. You know, so I can drop this blood pressure. It's not a big deal. Well, long story short, they sent me for further testing, including an echocardiogram. When I went for the echocardiogram, again, my blood pressure was normal. Everything was good because I just put it through my head. I got to deal with doctors and institutions, so I might as well be okay with it all. And I went for this echocardiogram, and they laid me on a table, and I got to see what my heart looks like when it beats. And talk about something cool. You know, this mysterious organ that's in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doing what it does. Again, who are you? Yeah, Marie Bernard. Yeah, who is this 24/7 person? You know, what do you really need to put into the world 24/7? Who do you want to be? You put it out there, and you're putting it out there already. Put it out there 10 times as much.
Wow.
And you'll discover not only the softness of vulnerable, but also the strength of vulnerable.
So if I keep putting it out there, and this is for anyone who's listening or watching as well, who wants to step into their authenticity and just do that more, how do you balance that with the hurt? Like, I don't let the hurt stop me. Like, I just do it anyway because it's just who I am. Like, it would be weird for me not to share myself. I think I'd actually have to put in more effort to hide myself.
Yeah. Good on you.
But well, I mean, I don't know, it's just naturally who I am. So I would think it was more admirable for someone who wasn't naturally that way, who kind of forced themselves to step beyond that. But anyway, I'm just wondering, like, because it hurts. Like, I'm such a sensitive person, and I put myself out there, and then people react in this way, and it's just like, I mean, even talking about it, I feel tears about to come up. How do you deal with that?
So you get to put out who you've discovered you are, and you also get to discover who you are as you put it out there. If you're coming 100%, let's say if you're coming through unfiltered, you're going to discover who you are in the moment just as much as you're going to have defined who you are in the moment. So you really get to the only way I could discover, for me to discover the teacher, when you asked that question, I had to sit here for a little bit. That was the longest I've sat in this conversation. So when you ask that, I don't sit here and go, I'm the teacher. I have a wise answer for everyone. That would be crap. I had to sit here and discover, what is it going to be? What's the answer going to be? In other words, this experience of life as Mr. 2020, this experience of life as Marie, when you're putting what you really are out there, you're putting not only your history or opinion or any of that stuff, you're discovering who you are right now in the process there as well. And that edge is going to take you to places that you couldn't have imagined consciously before.
Okay, well, so here's what I hear in that response, and I really appreciate it. I totally agree. I think that putting yourself out there, being authentic, like, you get to see how you are and observe how you behave and how you react, and that's how you learn about yourself, right? And that's how you learn how you might like to do something different next time. And I'm still wondering, I mean, maybe the answer to my question is still in there. It's just experiencing it and feeling the pain and just finding different ways to work through it. Is that what you mean?
You've got so much energy showing up. You're the person who I'd like to talk to at the party. Most people are sitting around. When you go to the party, there's just so much of this going on. Everyone's at about 10% doing their thing. I have no interest in talking to that. It's just background chatter. What showed up here is that there's this that you may not have complete clarity, but you also don't have complete confusion. What shows up with Marie talking about this is this dynamic in and out and back and forth, and here I am, what do you think? And that's real life. That's what nature does. That's the ocean. It's the ebb and the flow, the up and the down of the tides, the waves going back and forth doing what they do. That's life. And again, that's what people are hungry for. All the measured stuff, it's boring to tears. Everyone knows it. No one will admit it. But you show up at a party or at a small gathering, or even if you're just eating dinner at the restaurant by yourself, and you're sitting there. I mean, there are times I've eaten plenty of meals by myself, and I'm just having such a good enough time. People come over and talk to me because I'll be eating the food just just blown away by it, just letting that energy just move through. And it's like, and people come over. I just got to talk to you. You look like you're having so much fun. It's like, yeah, I am. But none of it's an act. It is right now, but none of it is while I'm having the food, because I'm just really, just totally blown away by the food. So, and it's in those moments where, another thing with this culture, we live in a culture where almost nobody knows what they want to do, so they do default for 40 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason they don't know what they want to do is because they're not walking up to that edge and becoming as vulnerable as possible. By becoming as vulnerable as possible, you get to discover what you've got to do. I've got to teach. Even just while we're just rambling and having a great little conversation, all these little teachy bites show up. And there's a part of me later on that's going to be taking notes off this as well. Oh, good article. This will work out great. Oh, I got to tell someone about this, right? Just whatever. But it's what I love doing. I love teaching. I love watching the light bulb go off. I love watching people's behavior change and watching them show up more instead of that be there. I just love that. So that's all I can say.
Thanks, Tony. Well, that actually, when you were talking about the party and everyone sort of standing there at 10%, I noticed, I mean, it depends on the day and whatnot, and I'm already thinking of what kind of, what was that? What kind of answer you might have. But I noticed, like with you and I, it's easy, we have a rapport. So of course I'm going to be like myself and blah, blah, blah. But if I'm around 10 new people, I'm like, probably not, unless I go in consciously like I'm on, then I'm probably one of those people that's at 10% protecting myself too. So what do you do when you're heading into a party or you're there? I mean, we talked about this last show about the self-consciousness and all of that. Yes. Any other tips?
So if I was teaching public speaking, I'd say pay attention to the crowd, not to you, right?
Yeah.
If I walked into a party and let's say I walk into a party and everyone's at 10%, I'm going to probably fall 100% in love with a scotch or a beer or a piece of cheese, and it doesn't matter what, because I guarantee that if I fully experience a piece of celery, if there's anyone in the room that's sparking toward life, they're going to be attracted to me like a magnet while I'm like, even if I'm just looking at the cookie thing. Like, let's say if I'm at a wedding and there's a bunch of cookies at the table, it's a, at least it's a Pennsylvania thing. So you got the cookie table, just looking at that and being in rapture with it. If there's anyone with a spark, they're going to start a conversation with me. I'll guarantee it. So if I'm waiting for someone, or I'll start a conversation with them. But the thing is, if you can go 100% with anything, most people will go 10% with the cheese, or 10% with the scotch or the beer. If I taste it and I go, "Ooh, that's the worst beer ever," and really mean it. I mean, I won't pull a punch. It's like, someone else is going to go, "Yep, you should have seen what it was like when I was a kid." It's like, really? So next thing you know, I've got some 80-year-old guy who I'm sitting with having this animated conversation with because he manages to want to be real as well. So you can always find each other. Even if you start with a piece of cheese or a beer or a scotch or a pretzel, doesn't matter. Fully dive into anything, and you'll find who wants to rise above that 10%.
I love that. It's totally making me smile. I'm just picturing you doing that and me doing that. And it almost brings it back to the beginning of the show when we were talking about if your inner world is chaotic, focus on the outer world. Because when you walk into a party and you're nervous, you're in your inner world. There's the critique going on. People might not like me.
Yep.
Oh my God, my dress is the same as that ugly chick in the corner there. Oh my God, what are people going to think of me? That's never happened, but it's just the first thing that came to my mind. So, and when you're talking about, you're talking about focusing fully on something at the party. Do you ever focus fully on like a person at a party, or would you focus on some kind of object?
I generally focusing fully on a person can be quite intense for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah. That's the thing. I'm intense. I like focusing on a person and getting to know who they really are, but not everyone can handle that.
Yeah. Being able to calibrate a little bit, just inviting someone a little bit further than they've stretched before is quite loving. Stretching them further than they've ever gone before is torturous. So, but just that little, the number one thing for me is life is a constant invitation. There's this continuous invitation. And it's the invitation to be present with you or the drink. We're talking, and I take a drink out of the teacup, and it's almost orgasmic. Oh, I can just feel the water go down and hydrate the organs. It's just lovely. But most people aren't conscious of when they're drinking water. They're literally drinking water, and they're gone someplace, versus drinking water and just really feeling that. You don't have to go. People will go way up into the mountains to do a mountain stream and drink the water, and then heck, you can do it at home. You do it at home; it's just as healthy, just fully enjoy the water, and really, that's it. Just if you can go 100% on anything, and when I say 100%, who the heck knows if you're going 100%? But if you can just be more and more present with anything. You're more and more present with everything.
I love that.
And yeah, that read Rumi. Oh, Rumi's just dynamite. A lot of wisdom in there. So.
Well, that brings me. I want to be mindful of the time again, but I do have one last topic of discussion because you mentioned the calibrating. You can go full on, and then you want to calibrate depending on the circumstances, what's most effective, what's appropriate. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit on Facebook, and how I've written it down is that sometimes we overuse or we over-rely on our strengths. Like one of the things I mentioned to you is I have very strong sense of integrity. And sometimes it's so strong, it actually can cause me more problems. Like I'll sacrifice my own well-being because it feels like the right thing to try and help this other person when they're not even like ready to accept help, and yet I get hurt.
Yeah,
nobody ends up helped, right? So can we talk a little bit more about calibrating our strengths?
Cool. We might be using the word a little bit differently.
Okay.
So what's the outcome you have in mind?
The outcome I have in mind. Well, I just basically, sometimes when you do something and it turns out to be a mistake, oftentimes the pendulum will swing the other way. Well, I'm never going to do that again. but maybe somewhere in the middle, like having integrity. Well, I'm telling the truth has gotten me in trouble at times. So am I just going to start becoming a liar?
So in Forex trading, right, there are at least, I've probably studied in Forex trading at least 40 systems to make money. And I've made money with all of them. I've also lost money with all of them. So what I suspect with Forex trading, with any kind of financial investing, there's probably as many methods as there are investors. And they will all say things that contradict one another. Always do this, always do that, always watch this, always disregard that. And if you read anything about Forex trading, you'll realize, it's just crazy all the different systems out there. But what it boils all down to is there's really only absolutely one way to lose. And the only way to really lose is to make it personal. I won, I'm the greatest, or I lost, I suck. And when you make it personal, it bottles the whole thing up. Versus, I followed the system, the trade worked. I followed the system, the trade didn't work. Why didn't it work? So in trading, being objective like that's really useful. In life generally, if we notice that we're personalizing it too much, going a little objective might be useful. And going a little objective, helps you notice, here's someone who needs help. I'm putting in 10. They're putting in 1. One of us is investing a lot more than the other one. So I might make them aware of that. Good example you asked about, we were talking about answering emails earlier. If I get an email saying, what did Neville say about this? What did Neville say about this? How would you do this? A lot of times I'll answer the first 1 or 2 emails pretty personal. After a couple emails, I'll say, hey, this is what I'd look. These are the articles I'd look at. I found them looking on the search bar. And I'm not doing it because I'm blowing them off. I'm doing it because I want to teach them to teach themselves. So if I reinforce come to me when you had a problem, that can actually make people weaker. Versus feel free to tell me if you can't find anything, but this is also how I find stuff. If you can't find anything, here, let me know. If someone says, hey, I searched the site, couldn't find anything, what do you think? Cool, that tells me I've got a new article to write. So there's always just noticing what's going on here and being willing to go, okay, here's bad teacher. Bad teacher is, I must neglect my wife and my food and my family to answer this email because I'm important. Versus good teacher goes, got it. Okay, so I get to be a teacher, a husband, a chef today, and this person's asked me 32 emails in a row. It's time for me to tell them, go look on the site. Use the search box. Search box is your friend. So if I make running the site personal, if I make being a teacher personal, it will cause the ego to get in the way. Versus if I just notice what I'm here to do is teach. I love teaching. Part of teaching is also teaching people how to learn. And that removes the ego part, because I get to go, yep, I'm a teacher, here's time for me to work. I'm a teacher, here's time for me to teach them how to work. And so it gets a lot funner that way.
It's interesting, that brings up almost, when you were saying the always or nothing, I think what happens for me when I'm overusing a skill, like if there's someone, I have to step in, I'm obligated, it's the right thing to do, there's this, it's an urge, like it feels, my heart rate, I almost get into this fight or flight type of mentality. And so I guess that's why I'm looking for these rules, like my rule about not making any major life-changing decisions when I'm upset, because I need something that's simple enough to remember when I'm in fight or flight. But it sounds like what you're saying is don't have, well, not necessarily don't, but rather than focusing on what do I do in fight or flight, just slow down, be present. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. And you know, you're doing that already because for you to notice you're in a, let's say, an amped up situation. You're in a, yeah, let's say you're in an upset.
Yeah.
You have to make a decision. Do I notice I'm in an upset or not? Okay, I'm going to notice. Am I in an upset? Yes, I am. Am I going to make a decision? No, I am not. So you've just made two decisions, right? So
Yeah.
so you get to explore your decision strategy while in an upset to exit the upset.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's every time I talk with you, there's just more questions. So we've gone way over time.
So
I'm just
we
wondering.
we got to do another get together. Cool.
Yeah. It always gives us another excuse to chat some more, which is always fun. I'm wondering if first of all, if you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see freeneville.com. We're talking with Mr. 2020 here on Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. If you want to get in touch with 2020, you can go visit him at freeneville.com, or you can comment on the videos. You can find him on Facebook. You can also go to my website, spiritualshow.com. 20, I'm wondering if there's anything you want to add to kind of round out this discussion we've had.
So I got to just pause for a moment and open up to notice what it's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, the number one thing, besides, let's talk about vulnerable for a moment. Vulnerable being of the heart. The heart does the same thing, day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. But I imagine that the heart never has the same mix of blood going through it twice. You know, sort of like the droplets in the stream going past my home. It's never the same river twice. So the blood moving through the heart, it's never the same blood twice. And, this whole thing of really opening up and being authentic with people and open, it really is about discovering who you get to be in the moment. Oftentimes when I teach, and even in my recordings, I never have a script. I have an outcome in mind, and I might have 3 points that I want to make, but I never know what I'm going to say. And that's the beauty of it all, because there's the part of me that's very finite, and the part of you that's very finite and defined. And there's also the infinite part of us, which we get to discover. And moving back and forth from finite to infinite, from earth to heaven to earth, moving back and forth like that is really what we're here to do. Because if you can walk up to someone and go finite and open up to infinite, go back to finite, or the other words would be from earth to heaven to earth, you get to really discover who are you with them, who are they with you, who are you now, because we're always growing and changing and discovering and evolving, or at least we're designed to. And if we notice it, life really does get to become a blessing and an adventure. And I appreciate the opportunity to share that today. Thanks, Marie.
Oh, I love that. That was great. I'm just leaving with such a big smile on my face, and it started out as a really tough day, so I'm so thankful for this conversation and the work you do. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you, and always fun.
Thanks, Marie. Cool.
Thanks. All right.
You look great. Let's set something up in the next day or two to get together in a couple weeks.
Okay, cool. Well, this has been Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. We've been speaking with Mr. 2020. Again, you can visit him at freeneville.com. I'm your host, Marie Bernard. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a wonderful day, night, whatever it is for you. Lots and lots of love. Namaste.